At its core, NASCAR is a performance-based profession. The success of a driver is measured by being better than the competition. On a macro level, this is winning races and championships. On a more micro scale, this is outperforming drivers that have the same equipment as you. So for Austin Cindric, he is in his 4th season racing for motorsports icon Team Penske. However, when it comes to the perception of Austin Cindric, it's a mixed bag. When you look at basic level statistics, Austin Cindric is a formidable driver. He has won 3 NASCAR Cup Series races and will have 3 playoff appearances after this season. On the flip side, you look at what Austin Cindric's teammates have done in that same time frame. Between Joey Logano and Ryan Blaney, Team Penske has combined to win the last 3 championships. Now, technically, you can give Austin Cindric an assist, if you want to call it that, for helping Joey Logano win the 2024 championship. So the bar of excellence for Team Penske has been raised exponentially high in the 2020s. Because of that, in a way, Austin Cindric feels almost like Penske's Alex Bowman. It also doesn't help that Austin Cindric got his ride because Tim Cindric was a higher up at Team Penske before he was fired in this last month. Many would point to Austin Cindric and say he's pretty much the Sabrina Carpenter of NASCAR as an industry plant. Although I would disagree because at least Austin Cindric actually has a personality outside of hating men. I think the fact that Austin Cindric got the ride because of his dad is partially the reason why, when it always comes to a driver punching above their weight class, Austin Cindric is always the low-hanging fruit for a guy on a top-tier team that needs to be replaced. I know NASCAR Twitter has gone hog wild with this. Insert driver to the 2. Some have tried to do conspiracies connecting Kyle Busch to Team Penske. However, come on guys. We all know Austin Cindric is just keeping that seat nice and toasty for Hailie Deegan. Austin Cindric seems to get a lot of hate, so you know what? I'm going to be the one to take on this Herculean task and defend Austin Cindric. So when it comes to a professional NASCAR Cup Series driver, Austin Cindric has crossed the 100 start threshold. This is usually the NASCAR industry bar to see whether a driver has a high ceiling or if they're gonna be someone that maybe wins a race or 2 but doesn't really have an elite career. I think when it comes to Austin Cindric's numbers, there are really 2 ways that you can look at it. First is when you just look at his stats as a whole, as 3 wins and the amount of top 10 finishes he has really isn't that bad. That is a completely different effect when you see how Cindric stacks up to his teammates in the last 3.5 years. Many would say that Cindric is performing subpar based on the caliber of equipment and resources that he has at his disposal. However, I think it's also important to realize that Austin Cindric and the number 2 team are on a completely different level compared to the 12 and the 22. Now, 6 years ago, the Penske number 2 team was elite. Penske had a championship caliber driver in Brad Keselowski, an elite crew chief in Paul Wolfe, and had the equipment to be contenders every single year. That all changed in 2020. Paul Wolfe was moved to be Joey Logano's crew chief and was replaced by Jeremy Bowens. When I look at Jeremy Bowens, I see a tale of 2 crew chiefs. There's what he's done in the Gen 6 era, which I also included 2022 in this case since many drivers and teams approached the Gen 7 like it was the Gen 6. In those 3 years, Jeremy Bowens was a formidable crew chief. Whether that was his championship contending season with Brad Keselowski in 2020, the lame duck 2021 where he won a race and made the playoffs, plus his first year with Austin Cindric in 2022. Under Bowens, you could at least expect to win a race and make the playoffs. Then there's the true Gen 7 era, 2023 to present. With this Gen 7 car, there is actually a solid case to be made that Jeremy Bowens is the worst crew chief in the entire NASCAR Cup Series. When you look at the number 2 team, this program regressed in 2023. Austin Cindric was so abysmal in 2023 that historically, this is the worst season from Penske's flagship number 2 car in the NASCAR Cup Series. However, it's not like this was a one-off season because, as we've seen, Jeremy Bowens struggling with this Gen 7 car has become a trend. After the 2023 regular season, Bowens was reassigned to the 21 car driven by Harrison Burton. However, even with how embarrassing Harrison Burton was in 2023, when you look at overall statistics, Bollins really didn't improve that 21 program at all. Now with Brad Keselowski in 2025, the number 6 program went from being a playoff contender to not even inside the top 30 in points. It doesn't matter whether it's Austin Cindric, a rookie in Harrison Burton, or a veteran like Brad Keselowski. Jeremy Bollins has a track record of declining performance in this Gen 7 era. There's also the fact that when Bollins leaves a program, they instantly progress in performance. The best example of this is the number 2 team under Brian Wilson. While it wasn't massive, 2024 was statistically an improvement for Austin Cindric. 2024 really felt like the first year where you had a formidable crew chief, the organization and Team Penske was solid, plus Austin Cindric was really evolving as a driver. Like I mentioned, year 3 and the 100 start mark is usually when we start to see the strengths and apparent weaknesses of a driver. In this season, we really saw potentially what Austin Cindric could be, and so far it looks rather promising. The apparent strength of Austin Cindric is Superspeedways. In the Superspeedway races since 2024, Cindric has led double-digit laps in all but one of his Superspeedway starts. The exception, 2025 Talladega, which actually turned out to be his 3rd victory in the NASCAR Cup Series. Austin Cindric is easily one of the best Gen 7 Superspeedway racers. He has the pace of his teammate Joey Logano without the head-scratching over-aggressiveness you sometimes see from Joey. At these tracks, Cindric also does a great job dictating the flow of the race. I honestly think if the Superspeedways weren't as chaotic like they were in the 90s and the 2000s, Cindric would easily be the Dale Earnhardt Jr. or Michael Waltrip of the 2020s. Another area where I've really seen Austin Cindric elevate his game as a driver has been intermediates. Instantly, I think of the 2024 Enjoy Illinois 300. Yes, Austin Cindric got lucky. This was partially a Jonathan Hassler disaster, and possibly if the number 12 team gets the calculations right, Austin Cindric doesn't win this race. Still, I think a lot of people have downplayed the significance of Austin Cindric's win at Gateway. In this race, he still had to beat Denny Hamlin and Brad Keselowski on pace to be in the position to where he could capitalize on the 20 and the 12's misfortunes. To this day, this is the most impressive performance from Austin Cindric as a Cup driver. Austin Cindric led a lot of laps and the number 2 team put together an all-around solid race. However, that race for the longest time was the exception and not the norm for Austin Cindric at intermediates. In 2023 and 2024, Austin Cindric did not have the pace of his teammates on these style of tracks. Contrast that with 2025. Based on the Auto Racing Analytics Optimal Lap model, Cindric is consistently a top 15 driver on intermediates. The evolution of Austin Cindric has seen him become a driver that was outside the top 20 on intermediates to now a driver that's around 5th to 15th. Sure, he hasn't won himself an intermediate race yet this season, unlike his teammates. Austin Cindric has been in contention quite a bit. I look at Texas, where Austin Cindric had great pace and led a career-high amount of laps on a traditional 1.5-mile oval. Unfortunately, the 2 team caught an unlucky break with a caution which pretty much screwed up their entire day. Cindric lost all of his track position to where he would be in the eye of the storm and unfortunately get involved in a wreck. Now, going back to the team side of things, I do think there are some instances where Austin Cindric is being held back from his full potential. Case in point, the number 2 seems to struggle on pit road a little more than the 12 and the 22. That's one area where the team could be doing him better, but there are also still some areas that Austin Cindric needs to improve in to match the performance of Logano and Blaney. For one, Austin Cindric is not a good short track racer. Now, to give Cindric some flowers, he is decent at Martinsville with 2 career top 10 finishes, but there is still a lot to be desired at these type of tracks. His pace at tracks like Bristol and Richmond isn't on par with Ryan Blaney, who has become one of the top short track racers in the entire series. Austin Cindric also needs to do a much better job at passing and defending. This is the biggest area preventing Austin Cindric from being elite. Joey Logano is easily regarded as a top driver with the Gen 7 car, and that is mainly because of the way he defends his position. Trying to pass Joey Logano in 2025 is like trying to pass Ryan Newman when he was still in the Cup Series. You know, as a driver, it is going to take an insane amount of grit to overtake Logano, whether it's fighting for the lead or fighting for 15th. Going off of that, I can confidently say that Austin Cindric, at the moment, is not a top-tier Cup driver. Still, when I look at Austin Cindric, I see a driver that year after year becomes more formidable and comparable to his teammates. Let's also remember that this is the NASCAR Cup Series, and it's not like a driver just instantly becomes elite overnight. The perfect example is just looking at Austin Cindric's teammates. Joey Logano almost became one of NASCAR's biggest busts after putting up subpar numbers with Joe Gibbs Racing. It really wasn't until year 6 that we saw Joey Logano become a contender. Now you see him in the present day, nobody thinks about how he missed the playoffs in all 4 of his seasons at JGR. Instead, he is a credible 3-time NASCAR Cup Series champion and the most clutch driver in the series. Then you look at Ryan Blaney, as honestly, for the longest time, I thought he was the most overrated driver in the entire Cup Series. I just could not see what the YRB fangirls saw in this guy, especially after his first 7 seasons where Ryan Blaney had just 1 multi-win season. It really wasn't until year 8 of his NASCAR Cup Series career that you saw Ryan Blaney get past the hump. He did this by winning his first crown jewel in dominant fashion. Months later at Martinsville, he punched his ticket to the championship, while in the process, handing Denny Hamlin his Folgers Cup. Ryan Blaney rode the high all the way to the championship stage, as in his first Championship 4 appearance, Ryan Blaney also won his first Bill France Cup. Now in 2025, Ryan Blaney is easily a top 5 driver in the series. It's actually now the inconsistencies of Penske that are holding him back, but I wouldn't worry too much about it. We all know Penske is going to lock in during the playoffs and give the 12 team the equipment to go out and win another championship. So when it comes to Austin Cindric, I see a guy that isn't elite, but he is certainly progressing towards becoming a contender in the future. Austin Cindric is elite at Superspeedways, plus he is narrowing the gap every single year between himself and his teammates. With more progression and evolving at his flaws like short tracks, defending, and passing, Austin Cindric has the makings of reaching the highs in the Cup Series that he did when he won the 2020 Xfinity Championship. Now, when it comes to all the critics, I've just got to say, give it a few more years and you are going to see Austin Cindric truly perform like a driver of the number 2 should.